Hello, hello. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Let's Get Social. We are finally getting to our blazer slash dress sew along. Um, and I'm really excited. I ended up moving this around just because after I took a bit of a look at the pattern itself, and I wanted to make sure that we could take our time. So I moved it to be able to better evaluate and make sure that I could walk us through each of the steps. And so we are going to be starting Simplicity, and let me just show you the picture. We're going to do Simplicity 9825, and I actually have a PDF version of the pattern. But for those that did not get a chance to see it, it is a blazer, or what I'd like to call, like, it's has the potential to be a dress. It is fully lined. And so I'm really excited about going through this. One of the things that I'm also excited about in terms of doing this pattern is that we are going to be doing this pattern over 3 sessions, so 3 phases. So if this is something that you're thinking about sewing along, it's not too late. My thought is that we will kind of take our time, move through this pattern together, and we'll do 3 2-hour sessions. So watch how this one goes. If you think it's something that you'd like to do between now and next Friday, you can rewatch this sew along, get caught up to where we stop in this first section, and be ready to pick up with us on this second session. So again, we're doing this pattern over 3 sessions every Friday at 7 o'clock for about 2 hours. We're going to sew together, and at the end, we will finish the blazer, or for those that want to make it into a dress. I'm going to talk a little bit about what you would do in the beginning, and I'll talk about that now. Or in this session, so that you can, when you cut out your pattern, you can make those adjustments so that you will have, so that it will be long enough to be a dress, and it will just be a matter of lengthening all of the actual the front and the back pieces, including the front, the back, the side pieces. So there are side, front, and back, a front piece, and then also the lining and facings. You will have to lengthen those as well. And so that's basically what you would have to do when you are cutting out your pattern. You want to make sure that you lengthen those pieces so that you can lengthen it to whatever the length that you would need to be able to make a dress. You do not need to lengthen the sleeves, because the sleeves are the length of the sleeves, regardless of whether it's a blazer or a dress. But you can see by looking at the pattern, if you're short like me, you may not have to make any adjustments to the length. But what I will tell you is that it does give you the length from the back of the neck to the bottom of the blazer, and it gives you that in the finished garment measurements. It is the very last measurement. You won't be able to see it, but I'm just going to point to it in the finished garment measurements. It's the last measurement, and that will tell you exactly where your blazer is going to hit. And from there, you will know how much you need to add to get it to the length that you want in order to make it a dress. And so I think it would be really cute as a dress. It does also have a bit of ease in it. And so it's made to have a little bit of a looser fit. I sized down one size. So based on my finished garment measurements, I would technically fit between a 16 and an 18. I am doing a 16 just to give me a little bit more of a tighter fit. It's not going to be tight. I anticipate that it is going to still be loose, straight up and down, but it is going to have a little bit more of a form fit than what the pattern, what the ease allows in the pattern based on the finished garment measurement. So I just wanted to let you know a couple of those pieces. I will repeat that information before we finish this session, just to make sure, again, that anyone who has joined late or is rewatching will have all of those pieces. Hi, Monica. Yes, I am back. I am back. I know I was gone away for a little bit because I was traveling. And then when I got back, I had quite a bit of travel for work. So I am happy to be back every Friday. And I'm also happy to be here. And I'm happy that you're on, Monica, as well. Hi, Kay. Welcome. Hi, Reese. And so for those that don't know, I am streaming live to Facebook, YouTube, and and on TikTok as well. So if you see me looking in two different directions or showing things that I'm doing in two different ways, it's because I'm making sure that I have everyone is able to see it. So again, we're doing Simplicity 9825. It is a blazer, but I think you can also make it into a dress as well. I did not make any adjustments to the length just because I think that it's right where I want it to be based on the finished garment measurements that they list on the pattern. So again, last time we're going to do this over three Fridays. We will be doing this pattern over 3 Fridays again, just so that we can make sure that we're taking our time and that we end up with something that we all really like. I'm also doing it over 3 sessions to encourage people to sew along with me from home. And so even if you're not thinking that you want to do it, by the time we finish this first session, you'll have a whole week to, get your materials together to catch up to where we are. And then you can join us next Friday as well. Okay, so with that said, we're going to get started. I am really excited because I'm doing something a little bit different in terms of the fabrics that I'm using for this pattern. So let me just show you. I decided to do a little bit of, let me see, what is this? That is blocking that. Okay, sorry, I didn't realize there was that. There we go. Okay. So I decided to do a little bit of color blocking, and I toned it down a little bit because I was going to do just, one arm is going to look different than the other arm. Then, there's a lot of options in terms of the pattern. Like you have a top, upper arm piece, a lower arm piece. Your back is actually cut into 2 pieces instead of being cut on the fold. So you have the option to do one side of your back one way, one side the other. The same thing with the front. And I was going to really just do something really funky. Instead, I decided to just basically mimic what I'm doing on the right side is what I'm doing on the left side. A lot less of a, kind of a more what I would call color blocking than what I intended to do, was just a little bit of everything everywhere. So let me just talk about a little bit about the fabrics that I'm using. So I am using this kind of faux suede. It is so you think like, oh, it's spring, it's almost summer, why would you use this? It is extreme. You could tell by this is extremely thin, very extremely thin fabric. So I'm using this. And where am I using it? I'm using it for the pocket flaps, and I'm using it for underneath the collar. So again, just to give it a little bit of a color, a little bit of a different fabric texture to the whole thing. I am using this silky, it's not silk, but it's like a silky type of fabric for the lining of my sleeves. Again, one thing that we know what happens when you have sleeves on, depending on what your clothes are like underneath, it's always helpful to have a sleeve that you could that slides over your arm, slides over your other clothes. And so I am just using this just for my sleeve, and I'm also using it for my pocket lining. Hey, Terrence. Hey. I'm so glad you're here. For the bulk of the jacket, I'm using this blue linen. So I'm using this blue linen for the front and the back. So the front panel and the back panel, I'm using this blue linen. I'm using this light colored jean fabric. So remember I said the arm has 2 different, there's an underarm piece and an upper arm piece. I'm using this, I think I put this for the underarm piece on each side. So I'm using this blue for the underarm piece, this blue jean. And then I have this other darker jean. So you can kind of see when they're side by side that they are different colors. One is lighter than the other. So this darker jean I'm using for the top of the arm piece. And then I also have, where's my other fabric? I have one more fabric that I'm using for the rest of the lining and also the collar. And that is, well, I don't know. I must have put it away somewhere. But anyway, that is this fabric. So this is my kind of fun fabric. It's got a lot of colors in it. And so I'm using it for the lining on the inside of the blazer. I'm also using it for the under. Oh, actually, I must be using the suede for the top of the collar. So I'm using this for the under collar. But then I'm also where the collar, the lapel part turns over. I'm using it for the facing, so it will fold out and you will see that come over the over the linen, that dark blue linen part. So it's really a great complementary fabric. I'm really excited. So again, I did not pin this to my dress form. I do not know how all these pieces are going to come together. I did just kind of lay them on top of each other just to see, like, is this going to really look great? I feel like it is going to look great. So we're doing this together. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, those are the fabrics that I'm using. Lots of different types of fabrics, lots of different textures, lots of different colors. So we're going to see how it comes together. Like, I hope that you all are going to hang in there for each of the steps and see how it all goes. Okay, so with that said, let's really dive into it. Let's get started because we got 2 hours and the goal is to try to get to step, I think I said step 14 is what we're going to try to get to today. And so with that said, we need to dive into it because we are already like into our 2 hour block. Okay, so the first step is that we are going to take piece number 1 and we're going to apply interfacing. And so one of the things that I did do to prep is that I did interfacing. I believe I interfaced. The goal was that I interfaced all of my pieces ahead of time. So that has been done. And so what I'm going to do is take piece number 1, which is the front piece. And here we go right here. It's already been interfaced. Both pieces have been fully interfaced. And we are going to take piece number 1 and we're going to reinforce at there's a small dot. And so I folded it over because but basically there is a small, where is it? Here we go. So basically you're gonna, you can't really tell because that interfacing is there. Let me just show you on this side. So basically you are going to make a reinforcement stitch right around this, this cutout. And so you're going to be about, I think it says about 1 inch in. You're going to sew along the seam line. So it's right here and right here. You're going to do that on both sides. So we are going to do that right now. And so if you're looking at this piece and you're wondering where it is the piece that falls right in between your dart. So you're literally going to do a 1 inch in from the edge. You're going to basically do a reinforcement stitch right along that little curve. And then you're going to clip to, but not through that to the dot, but not through the dot. So we're going to do that right now on both pieces. Hey, Tydri. Hi, Miss Tata. Welcome. Thank you both for joining. And let's see. I don't know why my other camera is not showing up. Oh. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? You cannot hear me. Let me see. Add to stage. Okay, you can hear me. All right, I'm just trying to add one of my other cameras in, and I don't know why it's not wanting to come in. Okay, yes, you can hear me. Okay, good. Add myself back in. Can you hear me now? Hey, Miss Alethea. Can you hear me now? You say, yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Okay, let me know if you can't hear me. Okay. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, I don't know what's happening with my camera, but you can see what's going on, so that's all that matters. And then for my TikTok people, let me turn. Okay, here we go. So we are putting our reinforcement stitch in. And we are literally doing step 1 for those that are just joining, where we are putting that reinforcement stitch And we're going to do it on both pieces. So you're basically stitching about 1 inch in, pivoting at the dot, and then you're going to make a cut to, but not through the dot. And for those that are looking for like a reference point, that dot is pretty much falling inside of your dart. Okay, anybody sewing anything this weekend? Has anybody sewn? Hey, Aisha. You said you could see both cameras. Okay, good. Thank you. Has anybody sewn this 9825 before? This this blazer. And again, after you do your reinforcement stitch, you're going to make a cut through, to but not through. Sorry, to but not through. I'm always curious as to what people are working on. I could tell you, like, my outside of this blazer, my next big thing I'm working on is going to be my Frocktails outfit. That's going to be my next big thing that I'm going to get ready to start working on. And I may even kind of give y'all updates while we're on the live. Okay. So we have basically put our reinforcement stitch in, and now we are going to be taking, we're going to put right sides together. We're going to pin piece 1 to piece 2. So let me move this pattern piece out the way. And I have piece number 2 right here. So what you see right here are, so for piece number 2, you had to cut both a lining and you had to cut a lining and you had to cut a fabric piece. So I have basically 4 pieces, and as I mentioned earlier, my linings are going to be this, colorful abstract fabric. And I got this from, I think this is Minerva fabric that I got. I got this from Minerva a while ago. And then I have this linen. So the linen is going to be my fabric, and then this is my lining. So I'm moving this to the side. You do have a lot of markings. You want to make sure that you transfer all of your markings. I have done that using chalk, as you can see, or hopefully you can see that I've done that. So the next step is, again, to put right sides together. Okay, good. See, this is why it's good to have your markings on there, because I was looking like, where is it? I was already going to do something on the wrong side. So let me just show you. So this is my right side, as you can see, of my front piece. And this is my right side of piece number 2, which is the side front piece. So right side to right side. And it is going on this side of the fabric, the side with the armhole on it, or a portion of the armhole. So I'm pinning those together, and then I'm going to stitch. And there are basically notches that you would line up. So you can see my 2 notches there. And then I have my chalk on the other one. And so for reference, it should pretty much come to the bottom. The other thing that I did do, which you'll see on this, is that I did serge all of my woven pieces. So my linen and most of my lining pieces have been serged. I did that ahead of time as well. Thank you. Yes, Terrence, I got it from Minerva. Yeah, so and because I feel like I made some shorts out of this. I gotta find them because I think it would be really good. And they're short shorts, so I think it would go really well with this. I think it would go really, really well with it. So I'm gonna push this up here. So I'm lining it up, and I am you say I have it, but I need to adjust the pattern. I need it longer because I'm tall. Yes. And so that's the great thing. They do have in this pattern, they do have the lines where you can adjust if you need to adjust for things like your height. So that's the other great thing about this pattern, is that they do have that ability to adjust for that as well. And I agree. I think that this is a pattern that, you know, it's something that if you have some fabric that is less expensive, if you've never made it before, I think it would be really good to, my recommendation, having not made it before, so we're making it all for the first time together, is to use that fabric that you know, that you don't care as much about, but you like because you bought it, obviously, as a way to kind of work your way through this. And then, like, I'm a person that usually stuff that I make, I have two of. And I was telling Carmen this the other day. Like, I'll make it once and I will then make it again to like make it perfect the second time. I'm like, that's my thing. I do that all the time, especially if I really, really like it. Oh yeah, I'm making it twice. I'm gonna make it twice. I will, and I usually the second time I make it, I could like whip right through it, like easily. So yeah, I would definitely say that's something that you could do. So I'm just pinning both sides because I also like to like stitch. So, you know, pin everything and then sew everything all at once. Yes, thank you, Carmen. Yes, please make sure you like the live. That really, really helps to notify people because it is Friday. You know, people might forget, especially since I had a little bit of a hiatus and wasn't on for a little while. Although I appreciate, Monica, I know you looking out for me and everyone else for that matter that might have been looking for me. I'm back. Okay, so I have my right sides together and I am about to do a stitch. So our seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And again, we are stitching piece number 1, which is our front piece. And yes, you see my makeshift, me making all of my interfacing fit on this large piece. And then also, I just want to mention one thing about the interfacing. The interfacing that they recommended for this is, did I throw the container away? Is the lightweight interfacing. I have more of it. I'll find the package, but it's a lightweight interfacing is what they're recommending for this. All right, here we go. We're about to sew this. Okay, so I didn't see, I'm going to look and see what people are working on. Anybody sewing for Frocktails? How is that going? I'm going to be in the same shoes as you very shortly, which is sewing for Frocktails. And I think I'm 99.9% sold on what I'm making. For those that did not have a chance, please check out the interview that I did with Elizabeth and Miss Carol of Carol Sewing Corner, who are both on the planning committee. They drop a lot of nuggets about Chicago. Number one, if you're not from Chicago, what to expect when you come to Chicago, and everything from the weather, what else is going on in town, to what to expect as it relates to frocktails. And they have a lot in store. And we're going to be continuing to drop little nuggets. I left that interview and I thought I got more questions. So I'm going to try to see if I can snatch one of them or other people from the planning committee up and ask them some more questions about frocktails. Because again, I'm super excited about it, and I feel like everyone is super excited about the Chicago Frocktails. And then again, for those that don't know, this is the first ever Chicago Frocktails, the inaugural. So you know it's going to be super lit. If that's a word that I could say in my late 40s, I'm saying it. All right, one down. And let's sew the other one. Hey, Julian. Welcome. Julian, I can't wait to see your outfit. I'm excited. I was just thinking about you today, Julian, because guess what? I had to use that wire. So for those that, if you have a serger, sometimes your serger will get lint. If you have an air threading serger, sometimes your serger will get lint in those little tubes and it won't, you can't air thread it. You're like trying to figure out, why is this thread not going through? So of course I was like, you know what would Julian do right now? So I looked up the instructions and I pulled out this little, your serger comes with this little metal tin thing with all these little tools in it that I've never used. I've had my serger for, I think 2 years now, or not 2 years, I've only been sewing for 2 years. So like 1.5 years or so. And it had this little wire, like metal thing that you use to kind of like clean out your serger. And when I was looking up the instructions, I saw a picture of Julian in there and I was like, oh, that's my friend. I was so excited. I was like, Julian would be so proud of me for figuring this out. So of course I put that little wire cord through and, oh yeah, okay. I was like, am I getting nervous? Yeah, and I put that little wire cord through, it pushed out the little lint, and there you have it. So I was so proud for figuring it out because I was 1 minute away from saying, let me call my friend. All right, let's see. Look, with the days that we've been I don't know, on the East Coast, the weather has been like all over the place. I mean, it's going to be almost 90 degrees, I think, on Monday. And the other day it was like, I mean, even today, the other day it got into the 40s. So it's all over the place. Anyway, I'm saying all that to say that, you know, I feel like there's going to be plenty of opportunity for me to wear this, even though we're heading into the summer, because of the fabrics that I'm using, it's particularly late at night. Like, this is obviously not something that I'm wearing in the middle of the day, but I definitely think at night I will be able to wear it some days. Okay, so we have sewn together our piece 1 and piece 2. Piece 1 and piece 2 are sewn together, and we've done that on both sides. So this is what it looks like when it's together. And now we are going on to our next step, which is I'm going to put these 2 pieces away. And by put them away, I'm literally going to lay them right here. And then we're going to pull out our piece number 3 and 4, which are our pockets. So remember I mentioned that I use this, you know, silk kind of fabric for my pocket linings. And then I have this contrasting fabric for my pocket. So these will be on the outside of my pocket. Hi, Donnie. So Monica said, I just finished a jumpsuit. Okay. It was cut very small, which was frustrating, which I totally understand that I need more patience with sewing mock versions of patterns. It was Simplicity 9234. I'm gonna write that down so I can look at it. So yeah, that is one of the challenges that even sometimes, even when you follow the finished garment measurements, it doesn't always line up. And so it is frustrating to put a whole lot of work into something and then have it not fit. That is totally frustrating. And that's one of the reasons sometimes I will look to see if someone has made something before for the sole purpose of figuring out, before I put in all this work, is it going to fit like I want it to fit? Because that has definitely happened to me. And I have tried to figure out, in fact, I made something, well, this actually wasn't the same situation, but I made something and put a lot of work into it, and it was too small. It did align with the pattern measurements. So that's why I said it's not really the same, but I was frustrated that I put all that work in, it's too small. And I did end up giving it to my daughter, whom I ask her very frequently, did you wear it yet? Did you wear it yet? Did you wear it yet? Because I'm like, I made this and I gave it to you, so I want to see you wear it. Anyway, that's why I don't sew for other people, because you have this sense of like ownership that you want them to, wear it and have as much pride in it as you have. Hi, Sexy Greta. Welcome. Okay, so now we're going to the pockets. So what do we do with the pockets? So it is telling us to apply interfacing, which I had shared that I've already done that. And it is saying that we're going to stitch the pocket lining, which is number 4. I showed you that. We're going to stitch the pocket lining to the pocket along the upper edge at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then we're going to leave an opening in the center to turn it at some point, not at this step, but we are going to turn it. So it is right sides together. So the shiny side is going to be my right side to the colorful side. So this is what it's going to look like. And then I'm also going to, it doesn't give you a mark of how much to sew. So you just have to leave enough opening when you are sewing across. So basically you're going to sew across this top. You're going to leave a little opening so that you can turn it. And so you do have to, there is a little, you can't see it because I used yellow. I should have probably used blue, but there's a yellow line there that you're going to use that's your fold line. And so we are going to deal with that at some point. So again, you're going to fold a little bit on both sides. You're going to stitch across 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, leaving a little opening in the middle so that you can turn it. So I am going to do that. And you're stitching at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And unless otherwise stated, it is 5/8 of an inch seam allowance for your seam allowance on most of, I guess, unless it's otherwise stated, pretty much it's 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I am pinning this, and I'm actually going to make a mark because I'll forget, and I'll just sew right across and forget that I have to stop at some point to turn. So I'm just going to make a little mark for myself just so I know to stop. And here we go. Oh, let me turn. Okay, you guys have enough light. Okay. And same thing on the other side. I guess I could have just moved it over and then went, but all right, there you go. That's one. And now we're doing the other. So I have stitched both. Let me see if you can see that. Let me back it up. There you go. So now you can see where I left a little piece open. And I've done that on both sides so we could turn it. And now it's saying that we are going to press the seam toward the lining with the right sides together. Press the seam towards the lining with right sides together. Fold the upper edge of the pocket along the fold line. And then we're going to stitch the side and lower edge. And then we're going to trim the seam. So let me turn you around so you can see. So we're going to press, and let me just turn my iron on. So that's the other thing you do have to do. Well, you need your iron quite a bit, and that's one of the reasons why I think I did. I'll double check, but there might be a piece that I missed. I did add all of my interfacing ahead of time. All right, so we're going to press the seam towards the lining. So I'm just folding it down while we're waiting for the iron to heat up. Let's see. I looked for it so long and no one had it. Yeah, it was a lot of work. And I'm giving it to my daughter. Yes, like look, at least you have somebody that you can give it to where you can see the fruits of your labor for sure. It is such a hard thing when you sew something and you can't fit it. Like I feel your pain. I've been there. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. All right. Come on, iron. Heat on up. All right. Let's see. Press the seam towards the lining with right sides together. Fold the upper edge of the pocket along the fold line and then stitch the side and lower edge. Okay. I'm following the, oh, let me take this off so you can see my workspace. Okay. All right, I have it folded down. So this is how I'm folding it. Here we go. This looks just like this. This is my fold line up here. And I'm going to press this. And then I am going to stitch it along the edge. There's also, just for the record, there's also not a, there's not a sew along for this pattern either, because there were some steps where I wasn't quite sure. And I was like, well, we're going to figure it out together. And this is one of them. Right sides together. Pin front to side along the side back. Matching the notches. Okay, stitch. Did that. Okay. Apply interfacing to the pocket. Did that. Stitch pocket lining to the pocket along the upper edge, 5/8 of an inch, leaving it open to turn. Okay, got that. Press seam towards the lining. Press the seam towards the lining. Seam towards the lining. Okay, we did that. And with right sides together, fold upper edge of pocket along fold line. Press seam towards the lining. Okay. Stitch side and lower edge. Okay, we're going to trust the process on this. I'm going to do this. So anyway, let me show you what I did, and then I'm going to revisit it just to make sure that I did it right. So basically, here's the two pockets. I'm going to put one down here and one up here. And on your pocket piece, you have like a fold line. That's up here. This is the fold line up here. So it tells us to kind of press the seam edge towards the lining piece, which is what I believe that I'm doing here, which is pressing this seam edge towards the lining piece. And then it says to, where am I? Fold the upper edge of the pocket along the fold line and then stitch the side. Here's where I'm a little conflicted because it shows this kind of down here like this. So maybe this is what it's supposed to be like. Okay. Yes, I think this is what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so let me explain that one more time now that I kind of understand what they're doing. Okay, so you're basically going to, once you stitch this top part and you leave this little opening, you're going to align this. You're going to fold this at the fold line, but not fold this lining piece. You're basically going to pull it all the way down so that it lines with the bottom, if that makes sense. So here's your fold line. Here's your fabric. You're going to basically fold it and then pull it all the way down. And now we're going to stitch all the way around on the sides. So it's basically going to be on the sides all the way around. So we're going to do that with both pieces. And I'm just going to press it one more time. Hi, Sean. Hi, Karen. Thank you for joining. Welcome. And I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Sometimes, these directions, I get it. It's hard to write it out the way it was. And these are why sew along is really helpful, because somebody had to figure it out. Okay. All right. Now we've done that. I'm so glad we figured it out together. So I am going to now, again, sew along the outside of both of these pockets. So 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Here we go. Can you see? Okay, good. One of the things I struggle with is going around these pockets, the corners of the pocket, making sure that they're even and look the same on both sides. That's my struggle. That is my struggle forever. Okay, that looks not too bad, right? Okay, one down, one to go. This one feels like it's a little bit shorter, but we're going to make it work. That's the only challenge of using a serger. Sometimes I feel like you cut into your fabric a little bit when you're serging. It shrinks it a little bit. It's not a huge difference, but it's something that I notice. All right, here we go. Second pocket and 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Going all around the sides, the bottom. All right, it's turning out good so far. Ooh. I'm telling you, this one is not as good as the other one, but it's not horrible. So here we go on this one. You can see that one is a little bit, it's not horrible, but it's not as good as the other one. Not as even, I should say. Part of me wants to go in and fix it, but I'm not, because guess what? It's not horrible. Okay, so now we have finished those two pieces of the pockets. It is telling us to trim the corners. I'm hesitant to trim the corners because I know that my fabric is one that will fray, and I'm pretty close to the corner, so I'm not going to fool with it. I think it'll be okay, and if I feel like it's bulky, I'll go back in and trim it, but for right now, I'm not. But for those that are following the instructions to the T, trim the corners on each end, and that will eliminate any bulk that you might have. Sergers shrink some materials even if you don't cut into it. Interfacing can also shrink. Yeah, so that, so between the interfacing and all the steam that I am using, I totally think that, some of the fabrics might have shrunk a little bit, because I noticed when I paired them back up to my pattern pieces to do my markings, that they were just a little bit off from when I cut them. Okay, so now we are moving on to the next piece, which is to turn the pocket. So we're going to do that turning step that I mentioned earlier. We're going to turn the pocket. So you should have left that little hole that would allow you to turn it. Hopefully the hole is not too small. I feel like the one on that side might have been a little bit too small, but we're going to turn it. And then we are going to slip stitch that opening, which I'm not a huge fan of slip stitching. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, LaAngela. And remind me, is it Tommy, Tammy? Because I want to make sure I say it right for the remainder of the live, so remind me. All right, I'm turning this. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. They have you do all of that pressing and all that, and then you turn it, and it kind of looks, you mess it all up to some extent. All right, and it's looking pretty good. So I should get my pointer, because I have a few, but I'm using my finger to fully turn it. I have this little thing I can. I'm so scared I'm gonna put a hole in it. All right, there we go. That side is done. And I'm gonna press this too. And let me just show you. So this is what it looks like on one side. Here's what the other side looks like. This is a nice looking pocket. I really like it. Nice looking pocket. And I'm going to do the other one. It's going to take a little bit more effort because I didn't make the hole as big. So yes, I can trim using a serger if it frays. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. So I made another garment and I did have to go in and do just what you said. So thank you for that. And I think it's going to be okay because as I'm realizing it, this is all kind of tucked on the inside and it's not too much bulk. So I think I'll be good. I think it'll be good to go. But you're right. Like if anyone does end up, you know, wanting to do like a quick, like a trim and serge all in once, you can definitely do that. And I actually do have my serger out. I don't think I'm going to be using it, but I have it prepped and ready to go with the color thread and everything. And I'm going to press these flat because the next thing that we're going to be doing is we are going to be stitching them onto our front and side front piece that we just stitched together. So this is what happens when you make your hole too small and you got to try to squeeze it all through. It's coming. It's just taking a little bit of time. I'm feeling like I'm really going to be happy with this pocket, this color combo. Okay, here we go. Here we go. There we go. So now I just need to get my fingers in there and push out these corners. And they're doing really, really well, looking really, really good. Hey, Shamira. Welcome. Congratulations on your Sewn magazine cover. Look, you look amazing. I love it. I was so excited. So excited. Okay. And let me just push this piece a little more. So here we go for the second pocket. Doesn't look too bad. This is the one where I said I was like a little bit too curved on one side, but it doesn't look bad at all. So I'm going to now press this before we go and put it on our jacket. And I'm going to press it on this side. Okay, here we go. I'm going to tell you, this is like my favorite iron. This is the Rowenta, and it has like a little thing that you put water in, and it just like steams forever. I love it. I'm just making sure that none of my lining is showing on the other side, because when I sew it on, I don't want the lining showing through. Okay, there we go. Can you see that? I'm gonna do a little bit of another little press over here. Again, just to make sure that the lining is not showing through the other side. All right. Look at that. Perfect. And I'm gonna do the same thing for this one. I'm so excited to see this. Like, a small part of me wants to stay up all night and really finish this, but we're doing it in steps. We are doing it in steps, I promise. Together. And if anybody decides to sew along, hit me up, let me know, because y'all know I like to make sure no one gets left behind. Okay, again, I'm just making sure that none of my lining is showing through, so when I stitch it, it does not show through the other side. I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Okay, so here we go. Okay, and just for the record, for those that are following the instructions exactly, you have this little opening piece right here. Mine is fairly little. This is where they're telling you to slip stitch it. I am not slip stitching. You convinced me I'm going to start cutting tomorrow. Yay, Monica, I'm excited. Please, let's do it together. I'm excited. So you would do like a little slip stitch right here. Again, mine is fully, I'm not going to do it. I'm cheating because I'm not a huge fan, but it does tell you to do that. So for those that want to follow the instructions exactly, you are going to do a little slip stitch right here just to close that little hole where you did turn it. If I do decide to go back in and do it later, I don't think it'll be a big deal, but you do want to make sure that you don't go through the front side, that you really just pick up the inner piece. So you might have to like open it up like this so that you can slip stitch it in there. I'm probably going to use a piece of not interfacing, but the I forget the name of it, but basically that the tape that you can put in the inside and just press it. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing, just sliding a little piece in there and then pressing it, and so that it'll be fully, that opening will be closed. But these are our two pockets that we have finished. They look really good. I'm very excited. They're pretty uniform. So you're not going to have one pocket looking one way and one pocket looking the other. They look really good, really close. Okay, so now let's go on to the next step. We are making great progress. Let me just wipe my space because, as I mentioned, this iron, it wets my whole space up, so I need to wipe it whenever I use it. Okay, so the next step is that we are pulling out our piece number 5. And our piece number 5 is our flaps, and you will have cut 4 flaps. So as I mentioned earlier, my flaps are that faux suede. You do need to interface 2 of your flaps. So you have 2 flaps that are interfaced and 2 that are not interfaced. And you are going to take one of your interfaced flaps and one of your not interfaced flaps, and you're going to put them right sides together. So one interface flap, one not interface flap. Make sure that they are right sides together, and you're going to stitch all the way around just the round part. You're going to leave the top open. And so again, you're just going to go around from one side to the other, leaving this top piece open because you do need to turn it. So just make sure they're lined up, raw edges even. Again, you do need to interface one and not interface the other. So I'm putting them both together, right sides together. Again, another area that I struggle with always is trying to perfectly go around this, these curves and make sure they're even. So I'm going to go a little slow when I'm doing it. And here we go. Double face tape. Look, Monica, I appreciate you today, okay? Today and every day. Because you like are helping me out. You're like my soul, what do you call it? Like you like read my mind. I appreciate you. Double face tape, for those that don't, that's what you can use as an alternative to close that hole on the pocket. All right, here we go. 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, one edge to the other. And I'm going slow so I can make sure I can go around that curve and try to have it look as uniform as possible. Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay. I go a little bit faster on the straight part. Go back slow again. Let me get to the curve part. All right, one down. Doesn't look too bad. Looks pretty uniform. There we go. So one down, and now I'm going to do the other. It does around those curves, it does help to kind of like clip into them so that you can, one, get rid of some bulk, and also you do kind of want to trim it. If you have fabric that doesn't fray, I would definitely recommend trimming it, and I will be trimming these flaps. So we're doing the other one. Again, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is what we're doing. And I'm gonna go a little bit faster on the straight part. All right, back slow again. All right, I feel like this one's going good. All right, there we go. 2 flaps down. Doesn't look bad. 2 look pretty good. Okay, so then the next thing that we are going to do is, let's see, turn pocket, press, slip stitch. Okay, so we skipped ahead a step. So we're going to finish this step, and then we're going to go back to number 4. We did step number 5, which is dealing with the flaps. So step number 5, again, I told you interface. You have 4 flaps. You're going to interface 2 flaps, and then you are going to right sides together, take one interface flap and apply it to right side to the other interface flap, just like we see here. And then you are going to stitch all the way around from one side to the other, leaving the top open. And then you should trim around these edges and then also kind of clip a little bit around the corners, and that will help them lay flat. So we are going to do that right now. We're going to trim a little bit, and we're going to clip into those little curved parts to help the pockets lay flat. These again, these fabrics that I'm using are really thin. So even if I weren't doing this step, they would pretty much lay pretty flat with a good steam. But we're gonna do this step because why not? If you use a fabric, again, this is a jacket that you, depending on the fabric that you use, you could make it much more like a coat if you use some thicker fabrics like some flannels or some thicker suedes. And then I'm also going to cut a couple of little clips into the corners just to help them. You can't really see them. I guess you could cut like a whole little piece out, but I'm just going to do some clips into it. And then I'm going to turn the pocket. And then I do need to press it. So this is what it will look like before I've pressed it. And now I am going to do the other one the same way, which is trim around. And cut the corners. Should have used my smaller just to make sure I don't end up cutting through. All right. So I'm gonna move that out the way. And then I am going to turn this, and it tells us to also, once you turn it, we're going to press it. Then it says you put a basting stitch across the top of here. Again, just this top part, just to make sure it stays even. And so I will be doing that as well. But first things first, I'm going to hand press this out and do the other one the same. And then I'm going to add a little steam to it. Press it really good. Then I'm going to put that little basting stitch in the top. All right, one down, one to go. All right, there we go. There's that. And now we're going to put a nice little basting stitch in just to keep it held down. And I put my basting stitch at my width at 5.0 or really close to it. And here we go. And I'm just doing that basting stitch right in the seam allowance. So less than 5/8 of an inch. Just in case I don't feel like taking it out. And I'm doing this one too. There we go. And I'm infamous for not changing my length back, so I'm moving it back. And let me move that out the way. Right, my space. And let's move on to the next step. So the next step is that we are going to go back to the step we skipped, which is to where are we? Pin the pocket to the front, and then we are going to placing the upper corners at the large dots, and then we're going to edge stitch the pocket onto. So here is our front. Remember, we sewed piece 1 and piece 2 together. It's upside down, piece 1 and piece 2 together. And I have, let's see, dots on here, but I need to place them on the front because that's where the pockets are going, on the front. So we're going to take this pocket, we're going to take this pattern piece. So that's, one of the things, and let me see, did I? No, I did not. So one of the things you have to make sure you do is sometimes you put your pattern piece or your markings on the back of the fabric, and sometimes you put it on the front. And in this case, your markings need to go on the front, particularly when it comes to the pockets and the flap. So what I'm doing right now is, and I also did it before I put on the interfacing, so it's covered. That's the other challenge that I have, is that it's covered. So I am literally just going to mark this. So I'm marking my flap line. So if you're doing this, know that you're going to do your flap line and your pocket markings on the front of your pattern piece number 1, if that helps at all. And so you have a flap line and you have a dot that you needed to transfer over on the front. Here's your flap line, here's your dot, and then there's another dot up here. You will want to put those on the front. So I'm doing that right now. Let me see, can you see that? Add to stage, boom. There you go. So that's what you see me doing, is you see me transferring those markings over. I'm lining up the bottom and I'm rolling it up again. There's a lot of ways to do this. You can also use this transfer paper, which I've used to transfer markings as well. And I think there's one more marking that I want to transfer, and that is this one right here. And you know what, the other marking that I think you need to transfer to is your buttonhole. Again, you don't have to do it now, but it is something that you will want to do. And let me just do it one more time for this piece while I have it out. And I'm just marking that, and one more needs to mark. I love this chalk, these little chalk pieces. I just started using them and I really like them because one, they come off of your fabric really easily. Unlike some of the other chalks that I've used that don't come off easily. I've had to use like a Tide stick to get chalk off before. But not with this, it comes off really easily. Okay. So we have our markings now. And we are, let's see, it says we're going to turn our pocket. Let's see, place the upper corners at the large dots and then edge stitch. And upper corner at the large dots. And let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, here we go. Upper corner at the large dot. There we go. And that is going to be right there. Okay. So I've gotten it. I have it at the large dot, and I am actually going to pin this in place instead of clip. You all know I like to use my clips, but for this I have to pin it. So the large dot, just for reference, is below. It basically is about 3/4 of an inch below the flap line, or between 1/2 and 3/4. I'm not measuring it, but it's below the flap line. That's basically where you're placing it. All right, so I got one. So let me just show you. So you can see. So there's my flap line that I marked with chalk, and then the circle is underneath of that. So I have it pretty much, it's like, I guess, 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more than 1/2 inch. So there you go. That's where my pocket is going to be sitting. And then I'm doing the same thing on the other side. And I just want to see like how my flap is going to sit on here. Oh yeah, that's going to look so good. Ah, it looks so good. Y'all know I get so excited. Let me just see. Thank y'all for hanging in there. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for those that decided so long. Nope, Monica, if you start to look at this in more detail and you feel a way like this ain't gonna work for me, I'm with you. I totally get it. Do not feel any way about changing your mind. I appreciate you for even looking. I really do. Okay, so now I'm basically doing the same thing on this side. I'm just pinning it. And I'm just going to look at this for a minute. So one of the things that I notice about the pattern piece itself is that the pocket does overlap between the side and the front. But let me just undo this real quick so you can see. So it does overlap. You can see it overlaps side and front. The way that I am pinning this, I am not overlapping it. I am doing it all on the front piece. When I look at so when you look at the side, the side piece. There is a flat piece there. And so technically it does overlap both the side and the front piece. I'm not overlapping it. And that could also vary based on your size, because my pocket piece, even if it went that way, it's not wide enough. It's not going to go that full length. So I just wanted to point that out to you. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal that it's more on the front than it is on the side front. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but we'll see. You know, we will see when I finish. We will see. And these are also things that I think I would consider them to be like personal preferences, to some extent, style preferences, but I'm not concerned that it's not overlapping the side front. But I'm pointing that out because if that's something that you are interested in or consider, it does overlap. And so if you were to trace the other side of the flap, it will go all the way from like where my finger is here to here. So you could overlap it totally, but it's not going to cover that full line because your pocket is not that big. It's not that wide. So mine will be totally, you know, this is my, let me see. So this is how it's going to be. If you could see that, this part will be underneath my arm. This is the side, and the pocket is right here. So for those that are interested, you can see how I feel like this could totally be a dress, a blazer dress. See how I'm short. I'm only 5'2", so it does come fairly long on me. If you are tall, in order to make a dress, you will definitely probably have to add some. But if you're 5'2", 5'3", you might, and you're okay with a mid-thigh dress, then you won't have to add necessarily anything to it. Okay, so with that, we are going to follow the next step, which is we are going to, let's see, we are going to place the upper corners of the large dots. We did that, and then we are going to edge stitch close to the side and the lower edges. So basically around the pocket, we are doing an edge stitch all the way around the pocket, leaving this top part open, because that is, you know, of course, how you're going to get things in and out of your pocket. So we're going to do that right now on both pieces. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. I really am just loving the way this color combination is coming together. I'm very excited about it. I have my edge foot on, so I'm using my edge foot. And I'm using my edge foot, and I'm setting my, I'm moving my needle over to a -3 or a +3, depending on which side you're starting on, but I'm doing a -3 from where I'm starting. So here we go. Okay, you can see and you can see. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to do a little bit of a back stitch here. And again, what's important to me is to make sure that my lining does not show through. So I'm also using my finger to like push it in so that as I'm sewing it, it's not going to show through. if I would have thought more about it, I should have probably used a more matching color. I use this white silk and you can really see it. So it's going to be really important to make sure that that it is not showing. And I'm taking my time going around this curve as well. Again, just to make sure it's uniform. And so I slowed my stitch all the way down. And it looks really good so far. Let's make it through the other side. Now I got to do the same thing on this side, which is push that white in so that it does not show. All right, not too bad. Oh, I can't wait to show this to you. And then don't forget to back stitch when you get to the top. All right, here we go. And here's what it looks like. Can you see that? This is what it looks like. That looks really good. Really, really good. Okay, so one down. I'm gonna move this over here. Again, very happy with it. You cannot see the white through it. And now I'm gonna do this other one. Same way. And takes a little bit of time to do this, but it's worth it in the end. So my other recommendation would be, as you're picking fabrics, to pick a color coordinated fabric for your lining of your pocket, because you are going to do just an edge stitch. And if that lining shows through, you're going to see it from the outside of the jacket. So it just requires, I mean, you could definitely do something contrasting, but the bottom line is you're not going to see it. And it's not adding anything. So it's better to, I think, to just go ahead and pick either the same color fabric on both sides or a very close complementary color. That way, if it does end up showing through, you don't have a big, it doesn't stand out as much. Like I have to really make sure this white is tucked in here because it will be very contrasting. Ooh. It's turning out good so far. So far, so good. I'm very happy with it. But going around these little corners, these little edges, this can be tricky. But nothing that just taking your time doesn't solve. And that's what I'm doing here, just really taking my time and making sure that one, that the white isn't showing, and two, that I don't go over my edge. All right, almost done. Almost done. Down to the last little piece. And again, just making sure that that white is not showing through. And then when you get to the edge, again, don't forget to backstitch. All right, there we go. And the second pocket is on. It's a little bit crooked, just a teeny bit. But again, the flap is going to be there. And so I'm just going to make sure the flap is super straight. And so you won't really be able to tell. I'm going to hide my little slanting with the strap, with the flap. So hopefully it won't be too much of an issue, because it looks like it lines pretty good with the bottom. So it's looking good. That's a pretty good color combo. Okay, so now we are moving on to the flap. And what it is telling us is that we're going to turn the flap, press it, which we've already done all those pieces. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to, on the outside, we're going to pin the flap to the front, placing the basting stitch along the flap line. So this basting stitch, we're going to pin it along the flap line. So let me just switch here so you can see it. So here is our flap. Here's the basting stitch. You are going to pin that basting stitch along that flap line. So I'm just going to pin it and show it to you. But basically the raw edge is going to be facing down, if that makes sense. It's going to be close to the pocket, the top of the pocket. So you're going to basically have your basting stitch. You're going to pin it onto the flap line with your raw edge of your flap. The raw edge of your flap is going to be touching the top of your pocket. And that's because you're going to fold it down. So that's going to cover your raw edge. So you are literally going to, we're going to pin that. And you're going to pin that basting stitch. And you're pretty much going to stitch right on top of that basting stitch, right across the top. So that basting stitch is what is your kind of your guide to some extent. And you just want to make sure that your flap is centered over your pocket as well, so that it completely covers your pocket, if that makes any sense. Okay, it says you can use a zipper foot to get to be precise, and if you have speed control in your machine, you can turn it down. Yeah, so zipper foot is actually a really good suggestion for how to get around those curves. You got all the great ideas, and you are 100% Correct. And I do have, so you're right, between using that zipper foot and slowing down the speed, you should have less trouble going around those curves. Okay, so thank you for that. Ouch. So I have my flap. Again, you're going to place it so that the raw edge of that flap is basically facing towards the top of the pocket, and you're going to line that basting stitch right over your flap line, and you're going to use that basting stitch as as basically a guide. That's what you're going to stitch over top. So that's how it will look. And I'll just show you, like, once you finish stitching it and you fold it down, they tell you to kind of cut your extra seam allowance if you have a lot. And then once you fold it down, this is how it will look when it is folded down. So I'm going to just pin my other one, and then I am going to stitch it. And mine is slightly above, but again, I'm trying to make a correction for one of my pockets being a little bit lower. Hi, Lavette. Welcome. The other thing I like about, again, this blazer is that, and the reason why I also say it's really serves good as a dress, is that it is fully lined. So there's that. All right, so I have both of my flaps down. I'm going to do my stitch straight across. And again, you're going to use that basting stitch as a guide for where you're going to be stitching. And then the next step after you do this is to trim any extra seam allowance on your flap. And then you're going to fold it down and press it. And make sure you do a back stitch. Speed up my, there we go. And I'm going to take my scissors and just cut this little bit of extra. I mean, it's really a little bit. It's not that much. I really don't have that much to cut, honestly. I just want to cut off. Just be careful. You don't want to cut your jacket, your blazer. And I'm just going to cut also these little extra threads. All right, here we go. So one down and one to go. It looks really, really good. I'm very happy with it. And now we're going to do the other one, same way. I'm back stitching a little bit. And there we go. We are done with this one. And I'm just going to clip a little bit of that raw edge of the flap. Again, being really careful that I am not clip cutting my jacket, because guess what we're not going to do? We're not doing this over. And there we go. And so again, the last step is to just press it down. I'm just cutting some of these extra little strings off. And I think it looks really good. I'm very happy with it. I'm not waiting for it to fully heat up. Do I need water? Oh, no, it has water in there. Okay. So just want to show you what that looks like. And again, this is that kind of faux suede. Here's your pocket. And as you can see, it has that silk lining on the inside, but you can't really see it. So, okay, so there's that. And now let's move on to the next step, which is step number 7. And that is, again, we already applied all of our interfacing, but we are going to get out piece number 7 and piece number 6. So you have a piece number 7, and this piece is literally just so that you can cut interfacing. And so I've cut these 2 pieces of interfacing. Best way is to fold the piece of interfacing in half, because you want those pieces to be mirrored. And I have already applied those pieces of interfacing onto my fabric. So that piece is already done. And the next piece is that we are going to, let's see, apply interfacing, back interfacing to apply interfacing, back interfacing 7 to 6, which we did that. Stay stitch the back neck edge. And so when we are stay stitching, so let's talk about that again. So this is also when you're cutting piece number 6, you have 2 pieces. You have your fabric pieces and you have your lining pieces. So I'm gonna, it tells you to cut 2 fabric, 2 lining. So I'm gonna clip these back because we are only dealing with the fabric pieces right now. So I'm gonna put those over to the side. So the first thing it tells us to do is, after you have applied your interfacing, and it only goes to this top part, then you are going to put a stay stitch in this top. And the way that it tells you to do it is you're going to go from the shoulder to the inside of the neck. You're going to go this way on one side, and then you're going to go in the opposite direction on the other side, again from the shoulder to the inside of the neckline. And then with right sides together, you're going to pin these 2 pieces together, and then you're going to stitch all the way down. So we're going to do that right now. Again, first step is to apply your interfacing, and you want to cut that interfacing, piece number 7. I would say fold the interfacing in half and then cut the pieces. That way you know you're going to be able to apply it to the right sides of each, to the wrong sides of each fabric, and you won't end up with 2 pieces that look exactly the same, because they should mirror each other like this. This is what they should look like when you have applied the interfacing. And again, this is the inside of the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to do our stay stitch at the top. So we are doing that right now. And again, we're going from the shoulder to the inside. We're going to start at the shoulder and go to the inside. And we're doing that. We are doing that in the seam allowance. And this is just to help stabilize, for those that don't know or not familiar, helps to stabilize that neck line. So if you could see that, I don't know if you could see that, but all right, let me see. Maybe you can see it better this way. But anyway, I'm going to do the other one exactly the same. Again, going from the shoulder to the inside. All right, and now that we have done that, we're going to literally take these two pieces. This is your back. We're going to put them right sides together, pin them, and then we are going to do a single stitch that goes straight down. 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is what we're doing. And I have a little extra piece of interfacing that I want to cut off. So let's see, what time is it? 8:54. We're making pretty good progress. I did a good estimate of the time that we're spending. So we got like halfway to where I wanted to get. But we spent about a good, initial 10, 15 minutes. Kind of going through some introductory. So we'll go a little bit longer. Okay, here we go. Move that piece. We're going to get this back piece together. And I'm going to do a back stitch. Go. I feel like if you were to do this on your own, you would definitely move through the pieces, through the steps a little bit quicker. Little back stitch at the end, and there we go. We have finished stitching that together. Okay, and now let's see. So we have done this. This is our back piece. This is what it looks like from the right side. And you should technically press it right now, but I'm going to press it off camera because we're going to move to the next step, which is step number 8, and that's to apply the interfacing to the under collar. So we're going to get out piece number 9, and I have that right here. I've already applied the interfacing to piece number 9. So I have my interfacing. This is our under collar. The one thing that I am going to do is I am going to put my markings on. So the other thing I will recommend, which again was something that I didn't do, is apply, if you have pieces that you have interfacing on, make sure that you put your interfacing on first, then do your markings. an easy mistake to make, or you reapply them afterwards. And I did not do that. So I am just going to go in and do some clips real quick to my, so that I can apply this. And then I also am going to, I realize this is a little bit longer. So I'm just going to cut this little piece off and just make sure. Before I cut it, I'm like, let me make sure it is really too long, and it is just a little bit. And then I'm just going to do, there we go. All right, so this is our piece number 9. And the only other thing I need to do is I need to just transfer these little dots. One right there. And one right here. And one right here. Make sure they're on both sides. Okay. And I think we've transferred all of our notches. So the next thing that we are going to do after we apply the interfacing is that we're going to stay stitch the, oh no, we did that. Okay, sorry. Apply the interfacing, then we're going to stitch together the back seam of the under collar. So that is this edge. So we're going to put them right sides together. Right sides together, and then we are going to be stitching across this back seam at 5/8 of an inch. Seam allowance is what we are doing. So we're going to do that right now. And let me just see. Stitch center back seam of under collar sections, which is this piece 9, our under collar. And with right sides together, we're going to pin the front edge of the under collar to the jacket, matching the small dots. So let's stitch it together first. And I'm going to do a little back stitch. And a little back stitch at the end. Thank you. Thank you for the roses. Thank you for the likes. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. You all have been over here on TikTok just liking away, and I appreciate it. Same on YouTube and Facebook. I appreciate you all. Okay, so here is our under collar, and then our next step is that we are now attaching our under collar to our, we are attaching our under collar to, let's see, to the jacket. So the one thing that I am seeing is, did they attach the back to the front? Okay, hold on one second. Let me make sure we didn't skip a step. Let's see, apply interfacing to the back. Stay stitch the back neck with right sides together, pin the back sections to the side, front, and the back sections. Yes. Okay, so we skipped another step. Let's back it up just a teeny bit. Before we apply this, we're going to come back to this. We are attaching our back to our sides. So we have our side pieces here, and we are attaching our back to our sides. So right sides together. So I'm going to take the back piece. I'm going to lay it with my right side facing up. And then I'm going to take one of my front and side fronts, and I'm going to match up my notches. Again, right sides together. So I'm going to match up my notches, and we're going to stitch the side back to the side. So I'm just clipping them together. And the sides should basically line up perfectly. And mine are. And luckily, I don't really have a stretchy, well, I don't have a stretchy fabric at all. It's not stretchy. So it is lining up really well. If you use a fabric that does have some stretch, just make sure that you don't stretch it out of place, especially with all the pressing that you're going to be doing as you're applying the interfacing. So we have pretty much, once we attach these, we're going to have the kind of shell of the jacket. The unlined jacket will be together. And I'm doing the same thing on this side. Right sides together. I'm taking the other side, and you do have notches that you can line up, but it pretty much should line up with the bottom edges should all line up. And the top of that armhole should line up to the top of your side, your front, your side piece. And then we're going to do a stitch down the side, 5/8 of an inch on both sides. And again, we are attaching the front to the side. I mean, front to the back on both sides. So I am doing that right now. And, the other thing I'll mention too is I'll mention that when you are cutting your undercollar, you are cutting it on the bias, because that's the next thing that we're going to deal with. So for those that are cutting your undercollar, make sure that you cut it on the bias, because, you know, I haven't done this one. This is obviously my first time sewing this pattern, but when I put collars on in the past, you do have to do some stretching, and it does help to have that, for that fabric to have some stretch to it, so you can match up those notches and get it really in place. So that cutting that on the bias is more important than trying to make it the pattern pieces all fit on a single piece of fabric. You know how we do. So I learned that the hard way, and so I just wanted to stress that to people who may not be thinking about that. So an FYI. And it is coming together very well. We're doing really, really well. And then at the top, make sure you do that back stitch. All right, one side done, and now we're going to do the other side. I think we're making really good progress, even though we're little. I mean, we're just now hitting the 2-hour mark. So I think we're making really good progress. And I'm just making sure again that we're lining up those raw edges. Because the other reason why that's important, hi Gaynell, welcome. The other reason why that is important is because we have our lining. And so we got to make sure that our, you know, that it's not too big or too small, that it fits perfectly, you know, into our blazer. So you want to make sure that you use the right seam allowance, because all of those things will have some impact on how your final garment or how your lining will fit into the final garment. Okay, so we have the outside of our jacket, and let me just so y'all know I love a good dress form moment. Pull my dress form out. And I love to like pin it on so you can see how it's coming together. Now again, we still have not, oh, and it is telling us. So let me see that. We are, let's see. And then we are also going to be stitching these shoulder seams. So we're going to make that our last step, is that we're going to stitch these shoulder seams together. But I just want to show you like what we did. Well, let's stitch the shoulder seams first, and then we'll pin it on there. And we'll make that our last step for this session. And then we'll pick up, we'll talk about what we're going to pick up doing in our next session. And that will help for those people that do plan to sew along. We'll talk about what they need to do so they will be ready to they'll be ready to join us next week. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically open our jacket out, and right sides again all facing each other. So you should be looking at the wrong side of your blazer. And you're going to take those shoulder seams, match up those notches. So here is your shoulder seams here. And you do have, my notch is covered on this one, but you can see where you have the notch where I did transfer on this one. So, but basically you're going to go across this top part, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And we needed to do all of these steps because the next step that we're going to pick up on when we get back together next Friday is attaching the under collar. But first things first, let's get these shoulder seams together. let's attach these shoulder seams. And then we're going to look at it on the dress form. We're going to talk about what we did and where we're going to pick up. We're making really good progress. I put that I think I wanted to go to step 14, but there's literally 35 steps to this. And so I think we are finishing at about step 8. Yeah. So that's where we're picking up at. So we're a little behind, but I think we'll catch up fairly quickly on our next time. So we got the shell together. So we're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch across the top of the shoulders on both the left and the right side. So here we go. And do a little bit of a back stitch. And now we're going to do the other side, same thing. Same thing, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, we have stitched both of the shoulder seams, and you would press these seams open. I'm going to do a lot of pressing off camera, and it'll be all pressed out. All my seams will be pressed open, and you can even trim them. Again, you won't see any of this because this is fully lined. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put this on here so we can see like what we've done. So this is literally the outside of our blazer or dress, depending on what you decide that you want it to be. I'm hoping that mine will fit like a dress, is what I'm hoping. I feel like it will. So here's what we've done. These, of course, will be covered with the contrasting fabric. The facing will be attached to this. But we have done our front. We've added our pockets, our flaps, and we have attached our sides. So remember when I talked about the fact that you have options in terms of color blocking, you have this front, you have this side front / back, and then you have the seam in the back as well. So this is all of what we have done. The only other thing that I will say that I think we didn't do, or did we not do it? No, we didn't skip it. I was trying to make sure we did not skip our dart, because we do have a dart on the front piece. And let me just see, when does it tell us to do the dart? It looks like we are doing the dart step, our very next step. So when we come back, so for those that will join us next week, thank you very much. Yeah, I cannot wait. I feel like it's going to look really, really good when we add, again, the collar, the under collar. This is the under collar, so you won't necessarily see this unless I flip it up or it'll go this way. So we're going to attach this. We're going to attach this next time we come back. So when we come back, we're going to start with attaching the under collar, and then we are going to, so we're going to start with step 8 when we come back. So for those that are joining us, make sure that you get steps 1 through 7 done and apply all your interfacing, because that'll help you move through the remainder of the steps fairly quickly. We'll do a quick recap just to start with where we've been. Again, there's a lot of, cutting in this. And so if you start going through it and you decide like, I don't know if I want to join, totally understand. But if you want to join in, I'm truly excited. We'll be making sure that no one gets left behind. And even if you decide to sew it after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out, direct message me on any of the platforms, Sew Sophisticated Designs on Instagram, or Let's Get Social on Facebook or YouTube. Direct message me, Sew Sophisticated Designs on TikTok as well, and I will respond if you have any questions in terms of how you catch up. But we have made great progress. It's looking really, really good so far. We're going to pick up on step 8 because we're halfway through step 8. So we're going to pick up on step 8 next Friday when we meet. And we're going to try to make it, I think next Friday, we're going to try to make it through to step like 20, 23. And I think that we could do it. It might be a little bit ambitious. The only other thing I would mention to you is that you do need if you're a shoulder pad person and you want to opt into that, we will be putting in shoulder pads next week because I will be putting shoulder pads in here. So if you don't have shoulder pads, it's something that you will want to get because I believe they are going in before we put in the lining. So if you want to do shoulder pads, if you want to opt into that, make sure you get them because we'll be putting them in next week. And I've never put in a shoulder pad before, so I have work to do to make sure that I can tell you the right thing. So with that said, we are at 2 hours and 15 minutes. Our goal was to do what we could in 2 hours. I appreciate all of you for joining me. I am really excited about next Friday because, again, I'm excited to get this blazer done because I think it's going to be super cute. And the test will be, is it going to be a blazer or is it going to be a dress? I'm still feeling confident that it's going to be a dress, but we'll see when the time comes. And with that, I will see you all next Friday. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I will see you all next week. Bye. Thanks, Terrence. Thanks, Monica. Thank you, everyone.